I knew something was up the instant my mother's name appeared on my phone. Since the last family dinner, when I was largely ignored, in between champagne toasts for my brother Ethan's most recent business, I hadn't heard from her in more than a year. Grace. She stumbled, her voice tense as if she had been practicing the words. We need your help. The house is the issue. I didn't even inquire about the house. The weight of déjà vu sank me as I simply reclined in my chair and gazed out at the city skyline from my office on the 29th floor. Ethan's most recent endeavor must have failed. Once more. I looked down at my desk planner, which was brown leather, had a damaged spine from constant usage, and was full of deadlines and to-do lists that no one in my family ever saw. I'd had that planner through 4 product launches, 3 promotions, and 1 very lonely Christmas. How awful is it? I asked bluntly. From the speaker, my father's voice said, $130,000. Foreclosure proceedings have begun. Thus, it's worse than I anticipated. I hesitated long enough for silence to take the place of shame. I advised against taking out a second mortgage for Ethan's eco-scooter blockchain marketplace half a year ago. Ethan's voice abruptly came into view, saying, it wasn't just a scooter marketplace. There was a revolution in mobility. I hung up. After 30 minutes, I was rolling into the driveway of the lovely blue craftsman house from my childhood, which always felt like a stage, and had a wraparound porch that looked like a dream. Ethan still had a Tesla, of course, so I parked behind it and emerged into a scene of delusions. My mum was at the door, already wringing her hands like a soap opera character. Dad stood rigidly next to her, feeling embarrassed but insufficient, and Ethan sat on the porch swing, sun-kissed, cocky, and completely unconcerned, as if he hadn't just destroyed their financial existence. Grace. He smiled as if we were longtime friends. You won't believe it, but I'm cooking up something even more ambitious. After funding is secured, I responded, don't, and continued to go past him without pausing. Like a gavel, I dropped my planner onto the kitchen counter. Give me the documents. Mom fumbled. Dad grumbled something about coffee, and Ethan's girlfriend Kira, a sulky Instagram model, followed them inside, while using her phone to record the family drama as if it were reality TV. Ethan argued, it's really not that bad. The burn rate just... The traction was real. I interrupted, looking at the foreclosure notice. The product allowed people to tip delivery drivers with NFTs of endangered animals. We shouldn't act as though it was revolutionary. Without raising her eyes from the computer, Kira sniffed, you never understood the vision. I glanced at my parents. For that, you took out a second mortgage on your house. Mom got red. We believed it to be his breakthrough. He required a net of safety, I concluded. As usual, the figures were lower than anticipated, soaring interest, late fees. Only by cashing out a portfolio that I had accumulated over 12 grueling years would I be able to pay it. They believed I had enough, yet they never inquired about my work. Dad muttered, unless we were in dire straits, we wouldn't ask. Desperation constantly rewrites memories, which is funny. While Ethan received a new Jeep and an apartment for his photography major, I recalled being 17 years old when I was turned down for admission to Stanford because it was too expensive. With my planner open, I glanced down at the list for today. Q2 Audit Global DevSync Finalize App Redesign. The phrase, rescue parents from blind loyalty to son, is not mentioned. Finally, disregarding the relief that washed over their expressions, I murmured, I'll help. However, we do it my way. Kira stopped filming. Hold on, what about contracts and such? Yes, I replied, putting my planner away. Just like that. I never once asked why I had to be the strong one, even though I phoned the only person who ever saw me that night. As soon as she picked up, I said, Cass, I need your legal knowledge. The time has come. The family called at last. As I watched the planner remain motionless on my kitchen counter, I remarked, they did, and I'm going to show them what happens when the responsible one finally takes control. With its cedarwood, fresh eucalyptus, and carefully regulated climate, Cassandra's office had the scent of power. Everything about her, from her fountain pen to her velvet coat, exuded calm triumph after she had found a partner the previous year. She was simply skilled, and my mother would have described her as intimidating. I sat down and put the foreclosure papers between us, and Cass said, "So you're really doing this?" "The hostile takeover." They gave it to me on a silver platter. I said, opening my planner and taking out a folded sheet of paper I had been preserving. It included a summary of their equity line, Ethan's previous 3 businesses, and all the occasions I had discreetly intervened to make things right without anybody noticing. Cass whispered, looking over the chart, "You've already mapped this out." "You certainly did," I declared. "I want co-ownership now. However, I would like the loan to be fully transferred after it has been paid in full. Silently, lawfully, unbreakable. And your parents," I said, "they won't read it. The fine print is never read by them, not with Ethan around. They have faith that everything being done is for his benefit, which in some way also benefits us." Cass gave a nod and started drafting the documents. She added, "You're not just taking the house after a moment, you're reclaiming history." I didn't respond. Rather, I turned to the first page of my calendar, which had a checklist from my first year in college. All handwritten in tidy ink: apply for a second job, refill asthma medications, buy used books. I could recall the very day I penned the list. Ethan was sent to Spain by my parents to take a photography course. For 3 weeks I forewent meals in order to pay for my biology lab costs. They had referred to me as pragmatic, autonomous, powerful. But there was never a choice in strength. Instead of showing me affection, they showed me silence. It involved being silent while Ethan failed upward. We met at the bank the following morning. Mom was dressed in her church dress, which she only wore during mortgage signings and funerals. Dad appeared worried yet eager, freshly shaven. Naturally, Ethan did not appear. Too preoccupied with meeting investors. As we sat down, Mom whispered, "Grace, we are so grateful. Our house is being saved by you." "I'm making an investment," I gently said. The loan officer, Janet, shoved the paperwork across the table. "Everything is in order. The title will now include Grace. Additionally, the complete deed transfers after the loan is paid off." Dad gave a non-listening nod. Mom didn't blink when she signed. And me. With my hands resting over the edge of the planner I had carried, I gently read each line. Not for notes. For the occasion. It served as my shield, my eyewitness. Janet stamped the last page when it was finished. "What a great job," she said. "The foreclosure has been put on hold. Your home has been returned to you." My mother gave me a sincere hug. My dad gave me a shoulder pat, as if I had just scored a touchdown. We strolled out into the light like a contented family after I tucked the planner under my arm. They were unaware of their recent actions. I stayed up that night planning the new agreement's automated transfers payment schedule and tenant conversion provisions. Next to my college acceptance letters, which no one ever inquired about, I recorded everything in the planner's back. Ethan texted a week later, "Thanks again for saving the day. I have a new concept, sis. Imagine Tinder combined with astrology and cryptocurrency. Give me a call." I showed Cass. She remarked, "He still believes he is the future." I wrote one line in big black ink on a blank page in my calendar and said, "No. Love is not the antithesis of control. It's the safeguard you put in place in case love doesn't work out." I have never written something specifically for myself before. I kept my records a secret from them. Why would I? They had never considered me to be that kind. They thought of me as the uninteresting daughter who had a steady job, a trustworthy car, and no creativity. The type of individual who silently signs checks without ever questioning the source of the funds. They overlooked the fact that I was the one who always remembered passwords, utility bills, appointments, and birthdays. Everything was planned. They had borrowed from me each time. I had discreetly looked into all of Ethan's projects. He received yes, yes, and no each time I received no. I created a timeline, a spreadsheet, paper trail. Ethan's startup setbacks weren't isolated incidents, they were trends, untrustworthy shell corporations, recycled decks for investors, phony endorsements. A few weeks before my parents said they were cutting back on groceries, I discovered a screenshot of Ethan in Bali from Kira's Instagram. I sent Cass an email, discovered 3 distinct LLCs connected to his cryptocurrency app. All of it was financed by personal loans made in my parents' names. It took her 5 minutes to respond. Financial manipulation is what that is. Fraud, perhaps. Continue. Yes, I did. I had automated the loan installments by now. $5,000 a month, which was taken out of my own investments. My stock holdings decreased. My emergency savings disappeared. I was erecting a wall between us, and every dollar I spent was a brick. And they pretended that the situation had passed. Mom began organizing a family meal to celebrate. Dad forwarded emails from Ethan to me with his pitch decks. And Kira shared a picture of a family brainstorming session in the living room, which I now owned in part. Nobody ever inquired about how I was doing at work. They were still unaware that I had been elevated to the position of executive director of software development. I had no idea that I was overseeing teams on 3 continents. I was unaware that I had recently inked a deal with a Fortune 100 company. They weren't corrected by me. Why would I not? All truths are expressed. They are displayed. I came late for the dinner, which was my mother's birthday, having just finished a 14-hour shift. I had wrinkles in my blazer. I had sleepy eyes. I saw it as soon as I entered. Ethan was presiding over the table like a TED Talk speaker. We refer to it as StarPath, he stated, a dating app that matches users and assesses emotional compatibility using blockchain technology and star signs. Wonderful, Mom smiled. He has always had such a creative mind. Kira added something. We have influencers lined up already. The next unicorn might be this one. I gently sat down after giving my mother her gift, which was a simple card and a check for dinner. I hadn't eaten yet, and nobody even noticed. And how are you going to pay for this? Ethan was pouring himself a glass of Pinot Noir when I asked. It was hard to chew the stillness. Well, now that the house is stable, Dad said, clearing his mouth. I answered bluntly, no. The loan is still pending. I'm paying for it. Not the atmosphere. No magic. The stars. No. Me, Ethan gave an eye roll. Grace, you're usually so pessimistic. Simply because you don't understand how innovation functions. You mean the robot that predicts toast, I said. Or the socks that provided hydration cues, or the goats from NFT. Experiences of learning, Mom blurted out. Before they take off, every entrepreneur experiences some failure. I surveyed the table. When the home was on fire, you gave me a call. I let everything go. I kept it. You want to take a chance on a digital horoscope fraud once more. Kira let out a gasp like I had offended her faith. Ethan frowned. My folks. They appeared to be irritated. That was the time. I came to see that they never considered me to be powerful. Only one person has access. They believed that the house, the money, and the signatures were all merely a favor from relatives. Not a deal, not a purchase, no reckoning. I got up and walked out after dessert. I had already zipped my planner back into my bag. I replied, I'll send the next payment on Friday. However, don't bother requesting that I pay for StarPath. It will be easier for you to persuade your astrologer. Kira whispered behind me. You didn't have to humiliate him. It wasn't humiliation, though. That shot served as a warning. I made the last payment the next week. On a Tuesday, it cleared. I didn't give my folks a call. Ethan wasn't texted by me. Rather, I sent Cassandra the receipt. I wrote, It's done. She responded in a matter of minutes. The transfer is as well. I looked at my planner. That day's page was blank. I only typed one word on the page, a word I had never before permitted myself to feel. Mine. They weren't prepared for my arrival that morning. They were all clustered around Ethan's laptop in the kitchen, perhaps preparing an investment pitch that included fictitious zodiac charts and estimates. Kira had already started shooting. My mum had prepared muffins. Mum was nodding along just as she had done ever before. Ethan came up with his first business idea. Without knocking, I entered. Startled, Ethan looked up. Grace, we were on the point of I placed my calendar and briefcase on the kitchen counter and said, "We need to talk." Relating to the house. Dad grinned. "Have you made a payment yet?" I created the final one. Mom let out a hand-to-heart gasp. "You are an angel. We may now concentrate on Ethan's latest endeavor. We considered submitting an application for you can't." The room froze. "What are you saying?" Dad inquired. "The house cannot be used as collateral. It is no longer yours." Quiet, Ethan blinked. "What are you discussing?" I produced the contract Cassandra and I had drafted. It was clear, compliant, and impenetrable. "Do you recall the documents you signed at the bank?" "Of course you didn't read it. You never do." "There was a clause in it. Full ownership passes to me after the debt is paid off in full, which I have done today." Dad grabbed the pages and glanced at the marked passage. His hand started to shake. "This isn't legal," he whispered. I responded quietly. "It is." I had 3 different lawyers look it over. Everyone signed. Kira halted the video. Mom's voice cracked. "But we're your family, Grace. Ethan the sun in their solar system, and the golden child caught my attention. When you depleted their retirement for your GoatCoin NFT fraud, was it family? When you missed my college graduation to attend Ethan's startup launch, was it family? Was it family when he backpacked through Europe and I worked 2 jobs? Ethan threw his chair over and leaped to his feet. "You deceived them." "No," I said, taking out my planner and turning to the page on which I had noted the day they had pleaded for my assistance. "I gave each of you an opportunity to read your signatures. You decided not to. You're acting spitefully." I made eye contact with him. "No, I'm doing this for clarity's sake." Kyra Destiny had already returned to her phone and was probably drafting an emotional influencer post. However, I was aware. She was planning her next course of action. When the money stopped coming in, people like her and Ethan left, I said, "This is what happens next. You are welcome to remain. As renters, I am going to draft a lease. Market value. There is no family discount. You might also move out." Dad appeared pallid. "Please, Grace, this was never intended." "No," I replied. "You intended to treat me as a silent emergency fund. But I no longer support fraud." Ethan laughed. "I'll take you to court. I'll make a press call. Do you wish to play the bad guy?" All right, I grinned. "However, you'll need to describe your track record as an investor, your fictitious forecasts, and how you persuaded your aging parents to pledge their future for an app that connects Libras with cryptocurrency." He paused. "You wouldn't risk it." I responded, "Try me," and closed the planner. Like a gavel, the boom shattered the room. Kira uploaded a heavily edited video of our altercation that night. In it, I was portrayed as the heartless sister who stole the house. The comments came flooding in self-righteous, outraged and angry, until they didn't. A few inquisitive voices had begun to ask questions by daybreak. "This guy ran a failing NFT company last year, didn't he? Why does his name appear on several LLCs? This doesn't make sense." The tide changed in just 72 hours. The LinkedIn profile of Ethan disappeared. Social media was removed by Kira. Former investors posted anonymously, sharing screenshots of deceptive emails, lost money, and unmet promises. In the meantime, I arrived at work, calm and unfazed, up until the security call. My assistant mumbled, "He's in the lobby." Creating a commotion, I took a quick look at the security feed. Red-faced Ethan made furious gestures. Out of habit, Kira is filming again. I went down myself. There was no sound during the elevator journey. Calm. I went outside to greet him as soon as the doors opened. "Grace," he yelled, "you believe your employment will allow you to hide that organizer, your valuable titles." Calmly, I walked up. "I'm not hiding. I have a job. You've never tried it before." You're envious, he blew up. You have been forever. You couldn't bear the fact that Mum and Dad loved me more. You're correct, I replied. Kira even put her phone down. You were loved more by them, and for you it was still insufficient. You required their funds, their home, their quiet, and you needed me when it ran out. He took a step back as if I had hit him. I looked across to the security officer. Please take him out with you. Make a police call if he comes back. They'll never forgive you. He yelled as he was pulled out. This is something you will regret. I said, they don't have to pardon me. All they have to do is pay the rent. Cassandra went back upstairs and texted. Heard about what happened. Are you all right? I glanced at my planner below. Better than mediocre. At last I have documentation. It wasn't a quiet fallout. However, I was. Kira went viral with her video. However, the truth also did. Receipts started to disappear from anonymous accounts. Ethan's trail was too long to conceal and included pictures of emails, half-finished apps with flawed code, former investors, and expensive advisory fees. Too irresponsible to remove. Mom was the first to call. Next, Dad. Next were family members I hadn't spoken to in a long time. You were too severe. You didn't need to go that far. Family comes first. However, I discovered that family is only important when it comes at no cost to them. As I concentrated on something more important, I allowed their voicemails to accumulate. A month later, I found myself standing in the house's deserted basement. My home. Hardwood floors were stripped. The wiring is visible. In dawn, light beams, dust floats. Looking up from the blueprint, the contractor did so. She remarked, "This is ambitious." Hub for mentoring scholarships. It's necessary, I stated. Pity is unnecessary for girls like me. They require tools. I had previously collaborated with 3 STEM foundations and the local Chamber of Commerce. The project had all the funding it needed. The Grace Newton Tech Initiative would teach young women more than just how to write code. They would gain clarity, self-assurance, and ownership. I took out my planner for the final time, turned the page to the first. The college list I created: purchase used books, refill asthma prescriptions, seek a second job. I ripped it out. I folded it carefully. I placed it in a glass frame beside my acceptance letter from MIT, which was never shown in this home. So far. Mom remained silent until the vehicle doors were closed on the day my parents left. She gave me an album of pictures, old, worn out. Clippings of my awards were inside, my writings. I was unaware that they had preserved the letters. I muttered, "I assumed you didn't give a damn." She remarked, "I assumed you didn't require me to demonstrate it." I didn't answer, because it was presence, not silent pride, that I needed in those days. "Now what are we going to do?" Quietly, she inquired. I answered, "You live your life. Make rent payments, observe the sensation of accountability." She examined the planner I was holding, which was now ragged at the edges. "Are you still recording everything?" "Not all of it," I replied. "Just the important parts." I received an email from the chamber that evening. They had chosen the first group of young women, 20 girls, 15 to 22 years old. They're all really smart. They all missed it. They were all younger versions of me somehow. As I stood in the basement, I could hear the sounds of construction all around me. New wiring, new walls and gentle lights replacing the old shadows. This went beyond simple remodeling. Reclamation was the term. Ethan was charged with securities fraud a few weeks later. Kira complied, handed over voice memos, emails, and videos. The case developed on its own. I refused to testify. Let the facts take precedence over the blood. We never meant for it to go this far. Dad wrote in a brief email to me. I provided the leasing agreement in response. The local journalists arrived when the center opened. Donors arrived. A couple of the old neighbors looked in. The metamorphosis caught them off guard. What they recalled as theirs had transformed into a template for overcoming neglect without destroying the land behind you. Champagne was brought by Cassandra. "You succeeded," she remarked, passing the last set of trust documents to me. Now it cannot be undone. This house cannot be reclaimed. Never. I said, I don't want it back. I want it to go forward. We went through the hallways where we saw brand new mentorship offices and whiteboards awaiting equations and aspirations. I was tapped on the arm by one of the females, Lila, a senior in high school. Miss Newton, she inquired, how did you get here, may I ask? As in, how did you make it? The planner sprang to mind. I wrote down things I would never utter for years. I touched her shoulder with my hand. By being aware of my value, I stated. Although no one else did. A bulletin board by the front entrance was the final addition I made to the center. Brilliance begins here. It said, there was a single frame beneath it, a glass-protected copy of my old planner page. A pen and a blank page are beside it. Want the girls' initial steps to be written themselves, not for anybody else, for themselves. My mother gave me another call later that week. Don't cry, don't beg. One silent query only. Are you ever going to join us for dinner similar to Grace? Not as the rescuer, not as the adversary. No, I didn't say that. I didn't say no, though. Perhaps someday according to my terms. Since I didn't set the house on fire, it was rewired by me. I didn't exact retribution. I created a legacy. I also didn't forget the past. I transformed it into something more robust, something that would last beyond all of them, and that it was worthwhile to put that in writing.